Okay, so we're going to be making a landscape, which will look kind of like this. Notice where the, I guess perspective would be the word is. So I would be standing like at the foot of this kind of stream thing that I never finished this, but right around here, looking into the woods. So it's not from an aerial view. You can see that the trees are kind of mushed together, all overlapping like. So when we do our trees this time, there's going to be a tree on top of a tree. It's like tree lasagna. It looks like a forest, right? So as we work, just know that you're going to be placing stuff on top of this stuff. So we're not doing, okay, there's a tree, okay, there's a tree, there's a tree, there's a tree. Just put them all around. They're all going to be on this one line. So they don't all start at the same spot, but they all finish down at this one wobbly line. Okay. So the rule here is you cannot just use one color. Doesn't matter. At this point, we know how to mix violet, blue, and red. So you can now use the violet. You can use the green. You can use the orange, but you have to have them mixed with another color. I think it was this. No, it wasn't this one. There was another landscape I did where I said I could only use the secondary colors. So I only used orange, green, and violet for the entire thing. If you want to do something like that, you can. So you could say I'm only going to use violet and this silver color. So those are the only two colors that I'm going to use, or three colors, whatever. But whatever it is, you have to bring it down here and mix it. So oh, those boxes. So I'm going to say I'm only going to, yeah, let's do it. I'm only going to use these three for the entire thing. I'm going to be putting, let me back this up a little bit. There we go. All right, so the first step is I'm going to make that line on the paper. So this line right here, where all the trees are going to stop. So the way I do that is just with plain water. So I'm going to take my brush, plain water, and go across the paper. Now you want to make it kind of a wobbly line. You want to think this is going to be like hills. All right, so I've got that one line. It wobbles across the paper. Again, your paper might bow or buckle, do this rainbow thing. Just hold it down where the bottom part of the paper is. I'm now going to wet the entire top of the sky, pretty much. Is the sky and where the trees are going to go, entire thing up top. So I got a wobbly line of water going across, and then fill in everything above it with clean water. Well, it doesn't have to be clean, but water. So I got some wobbly lines. Everything above it is water. All right, so as I said, I'm only going to use these three. I cannot take my violet and then go right to my paper. I'm going to take my violet, I'm going to plop it down on my mixing area. And I guess I have some green there. It'll mix in, whatever. So I'll activate my violet with 3 drips of water. Is about what I put in. And I get a little reservoir of violet there. If I'm going to grab another color, I need to go and wash my brush in some water. Get a clean brush. Get a couple drops of some water. Activate the paint. I haven't used this one before. If you didn't leave your watercolors with the lid open overnight, this is, you're going to want like one itsy bitsy drop of water, and you probably won't have to do any massaging of the paint like I am. It might even be kind of the consistency of acrylic paint. didn't dry all the way. So you want to be very careful if you didn't let your paints dry out. So use just a tiny, like barely touch the paint, and then you probably will have to add a lot of water to it up here. All right, so I have these two colors. I'm going to just mush them together. And I'm going to make some streaks of color on here. We're doing what's called a neutral ground. So you don't want to be making this. I had some students that went boop, boop, and they made like dots of color, and it made it, you know, it looked like it looked like trying to think what I could compare it to, like fireworks ice cream. So there are like these white areas and then big dots of color. You want it to be like kind of a grayish mush of color. It does not matter what color your sky is. Like if you want to do, if you wanted to do a green sky, that's fine. Just keep in mind you have to mix two colors together. So you do like green. If you want to do green and orange, fine. You can have a green and orange sky. But it needs to be more than one color mixed together. All right, so I just threw some of this gold in here. I'm going to add some more little areas. If the paint isn't moving around at all, we're doing wet on wet, the wet on wet technique right now. So you want to use a lot of water. If things aren't moving around, add more water. If you're starting to get puddles going, take your brush, squeeze out the water, go in and soak up. I have some water on the edge of my paper. Squeeze it up. You can also go in with a dry brush, so I squeezed off again, and pull up some of the water. So if you're thinking, oh, I kind of want to make clouds, if you used a lot of paint, so actually, let me demonstrate that. So let's say I used a lot of paint. So I have an area that's like that, and I want to, which is okay. Say I wanted to make this look like it had clouds. I squeezed out my brush, and I can go back in and pull up some of the paint. And there we go. I just made a cloud by pulling up the paint. Oh. Help me. I don't know what's better. Okay. So, but basically we're making the sky not white because, yeah, I don't want a white sky. So, some colors. All right, so I'm going to let this sit for just a quick second. Your paper still should be shiny, but you don't want puddles. So if you see puddles, go in with a dry brush, soak up some of that water. But you want your paper, your sky up here wet. All right, so now that I've got my sky covered with kind of stuff, and I don't have puddles, I'm going to go in and make some trees. Now, we're doing a wet on wet technique. So the trees are actually going to kind of bleed out. So they will look messy. I just added some more violet here. And so I'm making smiley face line strokes, all smiley face lines. And I'm just filling this in. Now what this is going to do, because this paper is wet and the tree lines are going to kind of dissipate, it'll look like, you know, like clouds, or it's far away. Because when things are far away, they get kind of hazy. It's hard to see details. That's what we're trying to go for. And you want to have some trees small. So I'll do like a teeny tree down here. Remember, you only, when you're doing these trees, you just want a bunch of smiley face lines. That's pretty much it. Smiley face lines. And I'll do a larger tree right here. You want to vary the size of your trees. If they're all the same size, it's going to not look natural. It's just going to look like a line of trees. And it won't be interesting to look at either. You want it to have like dynamic. It's going to be dynamic, kind of like a roller coaster. If a roller coaster, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get on the roller coaster, and if it's just a train, you'd be like, wow, this is a pretty lame roller coaster. So you want it to have large dips, and then on small areas where it calms down, you're like, woo, all right, a little chill, and then back to crazy, scary. Oh my God, I'm gonna throw up, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna throw up now. Oh, wait, I'm gonna throw up again. Don't throw up on your landscape. All right. So, like I said, I'm making small trees, medium trees, large trees. Uh, and you don't have to be careful right now because most of this is going to be covered up, and also you can see most of it's also not really visible. So even if you don't do this quite, you're like, oh, this is just practice pretty much. So if your trees look kind of wonky, you're like, I don't like this tree. It doesn't matter. I think yesterday I didn't intend for people to dunk their entire paper in the water, but you could, if you don't like it, wet the paper and then start fresh. Um, all right. Also, right here, you can see I have this empty space. I want to fill that. So I'm going to just do some lines, basically going off the paper, almost like someone cropped the picture. So I want to make it look like, actual kind of a picture. I'll do the same thing over here. I'll just a couple lines that suggest part of a tree. Boom. All right, Gabe. Actually. All right, so because I want this to dry a little bit, I'm going to start working down. We're calling this the background. There's a middle ground right here, and there's a foreground right here. So I'm going to pause what's going on up here because I want this to dry a little bit. My next round of trees that are going to go on top of these, I want to be less watery so they kind of stay put a little more, not a lot more, just a little. So I'm going to move down here. Now we're going to make, I'll show you what, well, this isn't finished, but this is kind of what we want. So we're going to do like a meandering stream. It's going to go through the landscape type of thing. You might be able to fish in it, or I don't know. Now I'm going to just paint a line right now, so you can see this is kind of wider down here, and then it gets smaller as it goes back in space. If I was going to draw a tree right here, I would want the tree to be really big because it's the foreground. So here in the foreground, we want this to be large because it's close to us. Far away, it gets smaller. But for now, all I'm going to do, I'll take some of this color right here. I'm going to draw a zigzag line pretty much. That's it. Does not matter. The question was what color? It does not matter what color you're using. I just added some gold to my violet. Does not matter. We're just making a line. So this is going to be kind of a suggestion of where we're going to have the river thing. I also want to make this not white. There might be areas where you want to be like, okay, I just want it to be white paper. You don't want a lot of that. So maybe just a teeny bit of the paper. Most of it, you want to have stuff there. So what I'm going to do is get some watery, I don't know, I'm just going to mush some colors together. I'm going to kind of do, just fill this in a little bit. So kind of what we did with the sky. So I basically covered this, and you can throw some paint in a couple places. Really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the color. But you don't want to go up to the line of where the trees are. So don't go up there. We want to keep these two things separate so that each one has time to dry separately. So you can jump down here, and while this is wet, jump back up to the sky, and we're bouncing back and forth. So it's like a tennis match or ping pong. We're doing a little bit on one side and then hopping over to the next side. So this line that I made is barely visible. So it's almost like a rough draft. Kind of the same thing that's going up on the sky. Most of this is going to get covered up. All right, and I do have this little arc right here. It was a brush stroke that I didn't mean to do. So I can just take some color that looks kind of like that and go over it a little bit if it's bothering me. If it's not, you can just leave it. It's not a big deal. But I kind of just blended it in. So I put stuff on top of it to kind of hide it. It might always be there, and maybe that's a little grass popping up out of the snow or what. It doesn't matter. Right now, nothing really matters. We're just playing around having some fun. All right. So at this point, the up here, the sky and the trees are probably a little dry. They're still probably damp, uh, but not puddly. Uh, kind of shiny in some spots, but mostly just like, it feels damp, but the paint's not going to move around a lot. Like if I rub this tree, it'll move a teeny bit, but not a lot. All right, so I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to get some, I don't know, let's get some silver. I'll kind of mix it with what's there. Maybe I'll get some more violet. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, just building some trees using smiley face lines. And I'll go a little dark. I'll add some more violet. I'm going to kind of go a little darker with these trees, so just a little more paint. And I'll just go back, do some more smiley face lines. And you see I'm going over that tree that was behind it. And this might, if the tree behind it's a little wet, it might do something. It doesn't matter. This tree that we're painting right now might get painted over completely. That's okay. I'm going to make it a little taller than the tree next to it. Like I said, with the whole roller coaster analogy. So actually, I'm going to make this tree go above the end of the paper. So that's a really big tree. So this tree might completely disappear. Who knows? I don't know. So I'll do another tree. I'll get some of that green that was left in my tray. I don't know if I said this yesterday, but if you have your tray, the mixing area really messy to the point where it's going to like spill everywhere in your backpack or whatever, I would suggest washing it or wiping it out a little bit. But I don't. I have the ability to leave this and come back later. So if yours isn't going to spill, there's not a ton of water here, I would just close it up because I can use this color that I mixed later. So there's no point in washing something up that you're going to use. Another one right here. So again, I'm just smiley face, kind of messily making some smiley face lines. Building up some trees. And again, you can see I'm covering up a lot of stuff that I did before. What we want to do, we're trying to create the illusion of space, and the way we do that is overlapping. I have a big puddle here still. Should I get rid of it? I'm gonna just go with it. I have a big puddle of water here. It's not a big deal. And then down towards the bottom, it'll be a little more defined because it's drier. One of the, I guess this one, I'll show this one. So I did this part at the very end. So these were as defined as these trees. And then I just took a bunch of water and scrubbed on top of it. And it just makes it look like, it's like a misty, and it's kind of foggy out, whatever. So I had all of these trees like this going all across. I just threw some water on top of them. So even this area right here that's got this blob of water, it looks like it's kind of foggy out. Doesn't matter. All right, we're doing okay on time. Grab some more silver. Make sure if you grab some more paint, you wash your brush off. Oh, I decided on gold instead. All right. And let's do a little tree right here. Maybe I should have told you only to use three. Nah, that's no fun. I'm using three colors. If you want to use more, it's fine. Just make sure as you're working, you're mixing things up. All right. That's kind of nice. And again, I've done about 35 of these. Don't worry if yours isn't looking the same as mine. If you got just a bunch of mushiness, it's okay. Just going through the motions of this is good for you. All right. So at this point, I'm going to pause on this area, let this dry. I'm going to go back down to my middle ground and my foreground, and try to maybe do a little more definition on this stream that's going back. Now again, to be super clear on this, the stuff that is close to you should be larger. Stuff that's farther away should be smaller. Also, the stuff far away should be kind of hard to see. So I might just leave this how it is. So I'll go back here and kind of figure out how wide I want this stream thing to be. I'll go right about there. That's about the thickness of the string as it's close to me. As it goes further back, it's going to get smaller and smaller. I'll go like something like that. So like that. So I've got skinny, it's wider, 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 a little wider, and then maybe taking up almost all of the bottom of the picture. And this can change again. If what you see you don't like, we're going to add some more water to this. It's not a big deal. So I can just take a bottle of water, go like that, and bring some of this over. All right. Now I'm also going to, now that I have sort of a blanket of color right here, so that's just a plain old wash of wet on wet, but so it's still moving around, but it's just a plain old wash. It's one value. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to draw an outline of this stream thing that's going. So I'll grab a little bit more violet, mix it with this gold color. And this is going to bleed out. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm just doing a little bit, just a little outline, suggest where the stream ends. And towards as it gets further away, you're just going to turn into one line. All right. And if it's too liney for you, you can go back in, kind of scrub it out if you don't like something. You can squeeze out your paintbrush, soak some stuff off. Doesn't matter. This is your world. All right, how do you? Still working. All right. Now, ideally, I'm gonna keep rolling with this. Ideally, these trees I would want maybe dry all the way. They're still a little damp, still all shiny. So I think what I'm going to do is avoid them completely, or maybe mostly. So I'm going to fill in. I'm going to put a tree right here, maybe a tree right here. Sort of try to get areas where it's not wet. This is going to be my third layer of trees. And so each time you do another layer, you want the colors to be richer, and you want your paper to be a little less damp. It doesn't really matter too much. Like I showed you on my example, this got completely wet again, so there's only a teeny bit of area that actually is kind of clean right here. The rest of this is, all washy. So if you don't get some trees that are really defined and clean, does not matter. All right, so I'm going to go in, make sure I get a lot of paint here. Like I said, I want a really rich color. And the reason I keep going to violet is that that's my darkest color out of these three. It's like the most powerful color I have. So when I want something that's going to be really rich in color, I'm going to make that sort of the base. I'm going to go back and I'll get some more gold. That's kind of a darker color. Now let's go some more violet. So to try and keep my colors really rich, I'm wiping my brush off on the water when I clean my brush. As the more water you have, the watery the paint gets. So I want to try to make this, I don't know, almost, it's starting to look like it might be maple syrup almost. So instead of being really easily moved, it's kind of, yeah, it's a little syrupy. All right. So like I said, I'm going to try and avoid the last round of trees I did. It's not a big deal if your paint moves around, but I kind of want to get some clean, defined lines. Also, the one thing that really makes this last layer of tree stand out is pointy tops. You can see these are really pointy. So if you can get a clean top like this, it's going to make it look like they're, and even the ends here are kind of pointy, as opposed to these, which I just kind of stopped and they're kind of a mushy end to them. All right, so let's see how I do. There we go. All right, so I'm working on this tree right here. Try to get some pointiness to it, if you can. Again, I'm working on smiley face lines going down, but trying to be a little more careful, a little more purposeful in my marks. And like I showed you before with my example, I did throw a bunch of water on top of some of these trees that I did and tried to make them look clean. At first, I decided, hey, we're going to have a big fog thing happen, come in, whatever. All right, so that tree looks like it's the closest tree though. So that's like the tree line is what we're trying to make a tree line right here. And again, you want trees to be taller, shorter. And another one in front of those trees. So I got a small tree on top of a really big tree, and then there's an even smaller tree in between. I kind of want, I'm resisting the urge to grab some green, because this is a really nice color. What do you want to do? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Okay, I won't do it. Please. No. Okay, no, I won't. Okay. I've been talked out of. I'll do some more violet. Because I want to see what the violet does. Okay. I'll try and get a lot of violet. If you have to go okay. I got a little. I'm cheating. I got a little violet in the crack right here, or a little green that's in the crack. Come on, green. All right. So I'll do a really defined one. I'll do a small one right here. And again, I've done a bunch of these. So if you're not wild about what you made, it's not a big deal. This tutorial that I'm doing right now is going to be online. So if you go home, you're like, I want to try this again. I'm going to get this down. It's not a big deal. You can. You make as many of these as you want. All right. Let's do a tall one right here. And again, we're trying to get pointiness towards the end of our marks. Oh, and we're almost out of time. So we're going to, I guess, pick this back up at some points, or not. This could be done. I'm gonna say that's done. Let's go with that's done. If you wanted to, in the future, you could do more defined right here. Kind of like that. Maybe a little bit right here. Yeah, and I could call that done. All right. So make sure you put your initials here, if you really like what you did, and you're like, hey, I really want this to look nice. You can leave that off, and I'll probably be able to get it back to you. Hey, could you sit down, please? All right. So I'll call that good.